The call came in just before 7 p.m. A mother's voice, shaking and frantic, broke through the dispatcher's calm questions. "My daughter's dead," she cried. "Please, please help." Just hours earlier, the streets of Edna had been glowing with Christmas lights. Families gathered shoulder to shoulder for the town's annual parade. Music echoed through the evening air. Children laughed. It was supposed to be a wholesome night, one filled with cheer and celebration. But while the town watched floats roll by, something far more sinister had already unfolded behind the closed doors of a nearby apartment. 16-year-old Lizbeth Medina never made it to the parade. By the time the last float passed and the crowds began to thin, her mother was searching for her. Minutes later, she would make a discovery that shattered her world forever. Tonight, we're breaking down every detail of this case, the timeline, the evidence, and the psychology behind a crime that left a community stunned. This is Minds of Murderers. Make sure you subscribe as we examine what really happened the day Christmas lights turned into crime scene tape. December 5th, 2023, felt like any other holiday evening in Edna. The air carried that early winter chill, and the streets were lined with families waiting for the annual Christmas parade to begin. Folding chairs were set up along the sidewalks. Children waved glow sticks. Music drifted through the crowd as anticipation built. For Jacqueline Medina, this night was about one thing: seeing her daughter. 16-year-old Lizbeth Medina was scheduled to walk in the parade as part of the Edna High School junior varsity cheer squad. Jacqueline had rushed home from work, quickly changed her shoes, and hurried back out, determined not to miss Lizbeth's moment beneath the holiday lights. She found her spot along the parade route and waited. The first floats rolled by, decorated in bright reds and greens. Local organizations waved to the crowd. Then came the cheerleaders. Jacqueline stood a little taller, scanning each face carefully. Lizbeth wasn't there. At first, it didn't seem alarming. Maybe she was farther back in the line. Maybe she had switched positions. Jacqueline told herself to stay calm. She watched every group that followed, her eyes searching with growing urgency. One float passed. Then another. The music continued. Still no Lizbeth. By the time the final float disappeared down the street and the crowd began to disperse, the festive atmosphere no longer felt joyful to Jacqueline. It felt wrong. Her daughter had not called. She had not texted. And Lizbeth wasn't the type to disappear without saying something. What had started as a simple misunderstanding was quickly turning into something else, something heavier. Jacqueline made a decision. She would go home and check. She couldn't have known that within minutes, her world would change forever. By 6:47 p.m., officers were dispatched to the apartment complex in Edna. What had begun as a mother's growing worry was now a police response. Jacqueline Medina had left the parade route with a tight feeling in her chest. Something wasn't right. Lizbeth wasn't answering her phone. She wasn't responding to messages. That silence felt louder than any alarm. When Jacqueline unlocked the apartment door, the space was still. No television. No music. No movement. She called out her daughter's name. Lizbeth? Nothing. She moved further inside, her steps quick but uncertain. Maybe Lizbeth had fallen asleep. Maybe she was in her room with headphones on. Jacqueline told herself there had to be an explanation. Then she reached the bathroom door. She pushed it open. Lizbeth Medina was in the bathtub. She was wearing the clothes she normally slept in. The water wasn't filled high, but her body was positioned in a way that made it immediately clear something was terribly wrong. Jacqueline rushed forward. Lizbeth was cold to the touch. There was a visible stab wound. The shock of that moment shattered any remaining hope that this was a misunderstanding. Jacqueline called 911, her voice breaking as she tried to explain what she was seeing. First responders arrived within minutes. Officers secured the scene and quickly realized this was not an accident. There were no signs of a medical emergency. No indication of self-inflicted harm. The scene told a different story. This was homicide. As investigators began their initial assessment, the Christmas lights outside still blinked along the streets of Edna. Families were heading home from the parade, unaware that just minutes away, a crime scene was forming. Inside that small apartment bathroom, the celebration of the evening had transformed into something unthinkable. 16-year-old Lizbeth Medina had been murdered. And the question that now loomed over the quiet Texas town was simple, but terrifying. Who had done this? As patrol cars lined the parking lot, word spread quickly among Elizabeth's friends. Several of them, including her boyfriend, had already been searching for her when she failed to appear at the parade. They gathered outside the apartment, shaken and confused, replaying the day in their minds. That's when her boyfriend shared something critical. They used the Life 360 app to share their locations with each other. It was a way to stay connected, to make sure everyone got home safely, to know where friends were without constantly texting. On the morning of December 5th, Elizabeth's location history showed something unusual. At 10:17 a.m., her phone had pinged on County Road 406. Not at school. Not at a friend's house. Not at home. County Road 406. Investigators immediately recognized the importance of that timestamp. If accurate, it placed her phone somewhere else during the narrow window in which the crime likely occurred. Officers followed the lead to an empty house that was currently listed for sale near that location. The property was quiet, vacant, and staged for potential buyers. They entered carefully. Room by room, they searched. But there was no phone. No sign of Elizabeth. No immediate evidence tying the property to the crime. The discovery only deepened the mystery. If Elizabeth had been home that morning, why was her phone pinging miles away? Had someone taken it? Had she left briefly and returned? Or was someone attempting to create confusion? Back at the apartment, detectives began constructing a tighter timeline. The neighbor upstairs reported hearing loud crashing noises between 10 o'clock and 11 a.m., heavy thuds that sounded like furniture being knocked over. Shortly after, the sound of a shower running echoed through the ceiling for roughly 15 to 20 minutes. That detail aligned almost perfectly with the 10:17 a.m. phone ping. Now investigators had a probable window of violence. Late morning. Around 10 to 10:30 a.m. The timeline was tightening. And whoever had been inside that apartment during those minutes was about to become the focus of an intense investigation. Inside the apartment, crime scene investigators worked methodically. Elizabeth had been stabbed multiple times. The wounds were deliberate, forceful. This was not a random accident or a single impulsive strike. It was a sustained attack. Yet something stood out immediately. There was minimal blood throughout the rest of the apartment. Given the severity of the injuries, detectives expected to see signs of a struggle spreading across floors or walls. Instead, most of the visible evidence was concentrated in the bathroom. It appeared Elizabeth had been placed in the bathtub after the attack. The shower had been turned on. Investigators believed the water may have been used to wash away blood, to dilute or destroy evidence before fleeing the scene. That detail changed everything. This was not a chaotic escape. It suggested awareness. An attempt to clean up. An effort to delay discovery. Upstairs, the neighbor's statement became even more important. The loud crashes between 10 o'clock and 11 a.m. likely marked the struggle. The shower running for 15 to 20 minutes matched the theory that someone had tried to rinse away what they had done. The estimated time of death now aligned closely with the last known phone ping at 10:17 a.m. Investigators began canvassing for surveillance footage from nearby homes. In cases like this, cameras often catch what witnesses miss: a vehicle leaving too quickly, a person running, something out of place. Somewhere between those crashing sounds and the running water, a killer had made a decision. And they had walked out of that apartment believing they had covered their tracks. They were wrong. 2 days after the murder of Lizbeth Medina, investigators were still combing through every possible lead. Tips were coming in. Rumors were spreading. But detectives needed something concrete. Then they found it. A neighbor's surveillance camera had captured activity from the morning of December 5th. Detectives reviewed the footage carefully, scanning minute by minute. At 10:16 a.m., right in the middle of the estimated time of death, a man was seen running from the direction of the apartment complex. He wasn't walking casually. He was running. The video showed him moving quickly toward a silver Ford Taurus. He got inside and drove away. The timestamp aligned almost perfectly with the reported crashing sounds and the 10:17 a.m. phone ping. Now investigators had something tangible: a vehicle. The image was released to the public, and authorities asked for help identifying the driver. The community of Edna watched closely. Social media circulated still frames from the footage. People zoomed in, speculated, compared cars they had seen around town. Days passed. No immediate identification. No arrest. But detectives continued tracing vehicle registrations that matched the make and model. They reviewed traffic cameras and followed every possible connection. Then, just as the trail seemed to cool, something unexpected reignited the investigation. Lizbeth's phone, thought to be missing, suddenly became active. And it was about to lead detectives straight to the man in the silver car. 4 days after Lizbeth's death, something chilling happened. Her boyfriend received a text message from her phone. Short, simple replies. "Okay. Not me." Another friend received similar responses. At first, there was disbelief. Hope, even. But that hope vanished quickly. Lizbeth had already been confirmed dead. Someone else was using her phone. Investigators moved fast. They contacted AT&T and requested emergency location data. If the device was powered on and communicating with towers, they could track it in real time. The signal came back. The phone was pinging in Schulenburg, Texas, about an hour away from Edna. A task force assembled immediately and headed toward the location. When they arrived at a residence tied to the signal, something stood out in the driveway. A silver Ford Taurus. The license plates were run through the system. The vehicle was registered to 23-year-old Rafael Goa Romero. The same type of car seen fleeing the apartment complex at 10:16 a.m. Officers approached carefully and made contact. Romero agreed to speak with investigators. Inside the home, during the conversation, officers heard something unmistakable. A phone ringing. They followed the sound. It was Lizbeth's phone, hidden inside the house. In that moment, the investigation shifted from searching for a suspect to confronting one. The digital trail, the surveillance footage, the timeline, all of it was beginning to converge on a single name. And the lies were about to unravel. With Lizbeth's phone recovered inside the home, investigators no longer had just a person of interest. They had a direct connection. 23-year-old Rafael Goa Romero agreed to speak with detectives. At first, he appeared calm, cooperative. He denied hurting anyone, denied knowing anything about Elizabeth's death. But the evidence inside the house told a different story. During a search of his room, investigators found women's underwear hidden in air vents and tucked beneath pillows. They discovered journals filled with handwritten entries describing burglaries, voyeuristic behavior, and detailed accounts of entering apartments without being detected. Some of the stolen items were believed to have come from Elizabeth's apartment weeks earlier. This wasn't random. It was escalating. When confronted with the mounting evidence, Romero's story began to shift. He admitted that he had gone to Elizabeth's apartment on December 5th. He claimed he knocked on the door, claimed he asked about drugs, claimed he complimented her and told her she was pretty. According to him, she rejected him. He said he became angry. After that, he claimed he didn't remember what happened. But he did remember leaving. He remembered driving away. He remembered getting into his silver Ford Taurus and fleeing the complex. Investigators pressed him. Memory loss did not explain the phone hidden in his room. It did not explain the attempt to clean the scene. It did not explain the text sent days later. The inconsistencies piled up. The calm demeanor began to crack. And behind the shifting statements was a clearer picture forming, one of obsession, entitlement, and rage. As detectives dug deeper into Romero's past behavior, a disturbing pattern emerged. Weeks before the murder of Lizbeth Medina, Romero had burglarized the same apartment. His journals outlined fantasies about entering women's homes and stealing intimate items, particularly underwear. He wrote about the thrill of not being caught. On December 5th, he admitted he returned to the apartment intending to steal again. But Elizabeth was home. What he expected to be another silent burglary turned into a confrontation. By his own admission, he tried to engage her. When she refused his advances, the situation escalated. Investigators believe the rejection triggered a surge of anger he chose not to control. What followed was violent and deliberate. Elizabeth was stabbed multiple times. After the attack, investigators believe Romero placed her in the bathtub and turned on the shower in an attempt to wash away evidence. He then took her phone and left the apartment, running to his car at 10:16 a.m., a moment captured on camera. In the days that followed, he powered on the phone. He responded to messages. Whether it was an attempt to mislead friends or simply curiosity, it ultimately led police directly to him. The motive was not robbery alone. It was rejection. It was obsession. It was rage meeting opportunity. And in a matter of minutes, a 16-year-old girl's life was taken because someone could not accept the word no. The investigation moved steadily toward prosecution. With surveillance footage, phone data, recovered property, and his own shifting statements, the case against Rafael Goa Romero was overwhelming. Prosecutors laid out the timeline clearly. Late morning, December 5th. Loud crashes heard by the upstairs neighbor. A shower running for nearly 20 minutes. A man running at 10:16 a.m. A phone ping at 10:17 a.m. Text messages sent days later. The device recovered inside his bedroom. Each piece fit together. In September 2025, Romero pleaded guilty to murder, aggravated robbery with a deadly weapon, and burglary of a habitation. There would be no lengthy trial, no drawn-out testimony forcing Elizabeth's family to relive every detail in open court. He received 2 life sentences, plus an additional 20 years. For Jacqueline Medina, the sentence brought accountability, but not closure. Closure suggests something finishes cleanly. This case did not. Her daughter, Lizbeth Medina, was 16 years old. A high school cheerleader. A teenager with plans, friends, and an entire future ahead of her. Now, that future existed only in memory. In court, the facts were undeniable. But one question lingered beyond the legal outcome. Why her? Why that day? Lizbeth Medina was more than a headline. She was a daughter who was supposed to walk in a Christmas parade under bright holiday lights. A friend who shared her location for safety. A teenager who should have had decades ahead of her. Instead, her life ended inside her own home because someone allowed obsession and anger to escalate into violence. Cases like this remind us how quickly ordinary days can turn tragic. A normal Tuesday morning. A mother at work. A small Texas town preparing for a parade. And within minutes, everything changes. We often think danger looks obvious. That it announces itself. But sometimes, it hides in entitlement. In fixation. In the inability to accept rejection. That is what makes this case so unsettling. If you followed this breakdown, you now understand not just the timeline, but the psychology behind it. This is Minds of Murderers, where we don't just tell the story. We examine the moments, the choices, and the mindset that lead to irreversible consequences. If you found this case informative, make sure you subscribe for more chapter-by-chapter analyses of real criminal cases. Leave your thoughts below. And as always, stay aware. Because sometimes, evil is closer than we think.